You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The studio buzzed faintly with the hum of cooling speakers, their rehearsal wrapped for the day. Sweat streaked the mirrors, their reflections tired but unbroken. Rumi sat cross-legged near the wall, a towel draped across her shoulders. Her phone rested on the floor beside her, its blank screen heavy in the corner of her eye. No call. No text. Not since he'd left. But she refused to let it show. Zoey sprawled beside her, legs flung over a chair. "You're thinking about him again, aren't you?" she said lightly, though her eyes softened. Rumi gave her a sharp look. "I'm always going to think about him. But that doesn't mean I can't handle this." She lifted her chin, her voice steady. "I'm not here to get stronger for me. My job is to strengthen the Hanmoon. To keep singing, keep performing, keep weaving the threads together. That's how I fight." Mira, ever the skeptic, tossed her empty bottle in the bin. "He probably broke the DMN phone. That guy acts like it's cursed technology. Wouldn't surprise me if he threw it at a squirrel." Zoey cracked up, muffling her laugh into her arm. "Oh my God, yes. He probably yelled, 'Believe it,' as it flew." A small smile tugged at Rumi's lips despite herself. The ache in her chest was still there, but she turned it into fuel. She pushed up onto her feet, snapping the cap back on her water bottle. "Whatever he's doing," she said, firmer now, "he's fighting through it. And so will I. If he comes back and the Hanmoon isn't stronger, what would that say about me?" For a moment, silence. Then Myra's gaze softened, almost grudgingly. "That's more like it." Zoey grinned wide, springing up to sling an arm around Rumi's shoulders. "That's our girl. Powered by love, music, and killer abs." Rumi rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. Her patterns shimmered faintly violet along her arms, pulsing with her resolve. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't just waiting. She was weaving her strength into the Hanmoon so that when Naruto came back, he'd find her standing just as firm as he was. They walked as they talked, the city buzzing around them, when all of a sudden the sound of music cut through the noise, sharp, pulsing, alive. A giant crowd had gathered at the end of the street, voices raised, cheers echoing off the glass buildings. In the center, lit by neon and makeshift stage lights, was a boy band. The energy was magnetic. Each step they took snapped in perfect rhythm, every move so sharp and seamless it felt unreal, like the air itself bent to their timing. Their voices rose together, harmonies weaving tight as steel wire, so captivating it was almost like the crowd was bewitched. Zoey and Mira stopped dead in their tracks. Their faces flushed red, steam practically rising off them as they ogled the boys like they were feasts laid out on stage. Rumi laughed at them, shaking her head until her eyes found him. Her breath caught. That same man she'd bumped into days ago. Her patterns flared instinctively across her arms, violet lines pulsing with recognition, though the crowd was too loud, too blinded by the spectacle to notice. He didn't look her way at first, too locked into the performance, but she felt the pull immediately. The crowd went feral when the smallest boy stepped forward, spitting rapid-fire rap verses that cut through the music like lightning. The others matched his pace flawlessly, their dance moves still in sync, voices blending together with frightening precision. Every note, every stomp hit harder than the last. And beneath it all, invisible to human eyes, waves of energy rippled from them. Patterns. Power. Subtle, but they're the mark of something not entirely human. Only hunters and demons would have seen it, threads weaving through the music like unseen claws. Rumi's pulse thundered in her ears. Then Juno looked up. His gaze met hers, recognition flashing instantly, sharp and deliberate. His lips curved into something slow and knowing. And before she could even react, he blew her a kiss. Her patterns flared hotter, bright violet climbing to her collarbone in response. And then silence. The song ended, the crowd roaring so loudly it was almost deafening. Juno's voice carried smooth and confident through the mic. "We are the Saja boys," he said, his smile sharp as a blade. "And tonight, you'll find us playing games on Korea's hottest game show. Don't miss it." Before the applause could die down, smoke erupted around them thick, cotton candy pink, and when it cleared, the stage was empty. The Saja boys were gone. Zoey and Mira were still fawning over them, cheeks flushed and eyes starry like they'd just witnessed the second coming of K-pop royalty. "Don't y'all see?" Rumi whispered sharply, her voice low enough to cut through their haze. They were demons. Instantly, the two straightened, the weight of her words sobering them. Zoe's smile faltered as she searched Rumi's face. "But how do we know they're bad?" she asked softly. "I mean, look at you and Naruto." Rumi froze. For a heartbeat, the betrayal stung, deep and raw. Her patterns flickered faintly, pulsing violet as she squared her shoulders. "It doesn't matter," she said firmly, her voice regaining its edge. "We'll keep an eye on them. I find it funny they only show up once Naruto clears out. They must be afraid of him." A smirk tugged at her lips as she glanced between Zoey and Mira, the fire in her eyes unmistakable. "When really they should be afraid of us." The words hung heavy, shifting the air between them. Zoe's blush faded, her expression hardening into something steadier. She tugged her hair into a knot, like she was bracing herself for battle. "Then let's watch their every move." Myra's gaze sharpened, the blush gone from her cheeks as quickly as it had come. "And the second they slip, we end it. No hesitation." The three of them stood in the cooling night air, the last wisps of pink smoke from the Saja boys' disappearance curling above the crowd. Huntress wasn't just an idol group anymore. They were guardians. And demons had no idea what storm they'd just provoked. The silence pressed in again, heavier than before. Naruto adjusted his grip on the soul blade, breaths fogging in the unnatural chill of the woods. The last monster had dissolved into ash, but the stench lingered acrid, clinging, like smoke that had seeped into his very skin. His body was fine, for now just shallow cuts, nothing he hadn't endured 100 times before. But his instincts kept screaming, louder with every step. He wasn't alone. The forest was alive. Every tree, every shadow, every shifting leaf felt like it was watching him, hungry. "Forest of darkness, huh?" he muttered, trying to steady the unease crawling up his spine. "TCH. I've fought in worse." But the deeper he pressed, the more wrong it felt. The ground seemed to sink beneath him, the air grew thicker, pressing into his lungs until each breath hurt. His patterns shimmered faintly violet-red along his arms, the glow repelling the worst of the forest's poison, but it couldn't drive away. The weight in the air. Then came the sound. A laugh, thin, high-pitched, not human. It echoed like glass shattering in the distance. Shadows peeled away from the tree-line. Not one. Not two. 30. Their bodies were warped in different ways, some hunched, their limbs bent at sick angles, some with jaws split too wide, teeth glinting like broken blades. Their eyes glowed like burning coals. Naruto exhaled, lowering into a stance. His stomach growled, absurdly loud in the quiet, and for half a heartbeat he almost laughed. Figures. First trial, and it's a DMN horde. He closed his eyes. The soul blade pulsed in his grip not as a weapon, but as a guide. His breath slowed, his mind emptying until there was no forest, no demons, no trial. Only rhythm. Step. Swing. Breathe. The first monster lunged. His blade shot upward in a flash, its claw never reached him. The head tumbled into ash before its scream could form. Another rushed from the right, too fast. Naruto pivoted, the blade catching its jaw mid-snap. Bone crunched, smoke spewed, and he kicked the body away before it dissolved. Two came at once, jaws unhinged, claws raking down. He ducked low, feeling the sting of air as they swiped past his hair, then spun. His blade cut through both torsos in one sweeping arc, the glow trailing like fire. One tried to leap on his back. He felt the shift in air pressure, dropped to a knee, and moved the sword up without looking. Its body split neatly in half, collapsing on either side of him. Slash. Block. Counter. Pivot. Another claw raked across his forearm, leaving a shallow line of blood. Naruto hissed but didn't falter. He flowed into the next stance, twisting the blade to sever its wrist before plunging deep through its chest. It was a dance, brutal yet graceful. The monsters came at him in waves, claws scraping, teeth snapping, but none reached him. His blade sang, each strike a note in a song only his soul knew. Smoke and ash burst with every swing, the clearing filling with black haze, but Naruto moved through it like wind carving through fog. He didn't think. He didn't force it. He surrendered to the blade, to the rhythm, to the strange calm that spread through him as the fight raged. A final beast, bigger than the others, barreled toward him. Its claws clamped on his shoulders, trying to drag him down. Naruto shifted his weight, twisted, and brought the blade up in a brutal slice. Its body exploded into ash before it hit the ground. And when the last specks of shadow burned away, silence fell once more. Naruto opened his eyes. His blade glowed steady, his breath even. Not a bead of sweat touched his brow. 30 monsters, and they hadn't even made him out of breath. The forest, for once, didn't laugh. Naruto slumped against a twisted tree, pulling the straps of his pack loose. His stomach had been grumbling for what felt like hours. He dug out the rations the hunters had shoved at him, dry bread, jerky, nothing close to ramen, but food all the same. He chewed in silence, the taste bland against the copper tang of lingering smoke in his throat. His gaze stayed on the shadows. Always on the shadows. The forest had gone still, too still, and that set every alarm in his gut ringing. When the last crumbs were gone, he closed his eyes and pressed his hands together. Sage mode had always been his answer in places like this, when he needed clarity, when he needed to feel the world breathe around him. But the second he tried, it was like slamming into a wall. The air here wasn't alive, it was poisoned. The branches above whispered with something twisted, wrong, the energy curdled instead of flowing. He winced, forcing the attempt away before it corrupted him. Figures, he muttered, spitting the bitter taste from his mouth. Nature's as messed up as the monsters. So he did what he knew would work. His pattern stirred, glowing faint violet before the hue bled into crimson, threads of demon energy crawling across his arms like fire through cracks in stone. His pulse steadied, his muscles thrummed, and the silence of the forest bent back slightly as though something recognized the power and whispered in response. That was when he felt it. A pressure. Heavy, coiled, waiting. Not close, but not far either. Roughly 3 miles to the left, the sensation beat against his senses like a war drum. A source. Bigger, darker. Stronger. Naruto's grip tightened around the soul blade. Guess I found the heart of this place. He shoved the last of his ration wrappers back in his bag, slung it over his shoulder, and leapt into the trees. His body moved on instinct, crouch, spring, land, repeat, branches bending under his weight as he blurred through the canopy. With each mile, the forest grew stranger. The trees blackened until their bark cracked like burnt wood, sap dripping like tar. The air got thicker, hotter, making each breath feel like smoke. And the deeper he went, the fewer monsters prowled. No hissing. No claws. No glowing eyes. Not because they were gone. Because they were avoiding what lay ahead. Naruto landed on a crooked branch, crouching low. His eyes narrowed. The air buzzed here, the ground itself humming faintly underfoot. He tightened his grip on the hilt, blade pulsing orange in answer. He was here. At the core. The trees thinned suddenly, opening into a clearing that felt carved out of the world itself. The air was heavier here, every breath dragging like tar into his lungs. And in the center of it waited. A spider. Not the kind that scurried in corners or spun webs in attics. This one was colossal. Its legs arched taller than the trees, chitin black as obsidian, each segment gleaming with a sheen like oil. The forest's shadows clung to it, pulsing with every subtle twitch of its body. 8 eyes, pale and lidless, fixed on him with unblinking malice. Naruto felt it immediately, the core. This wasn't just some beast lurking in the forest of darkness. This was the fuel, the heartbeat, the reason every twisted thing crawled in these woods. Its aura pressed down on him like a mountain, suffocating, hateful. The spider hissed, mandibles snapping, and the ground beneath him quaked as it shifted forward. For one heartbeat, Naruto let the weight of that malice settle on him. He let it press against his scars, against the hollow ache of every battle he'd survived. And then he grinned. So this is it, huh? The big bad boss of the forest. His blade flared to life in his hand, orange light spilling across the roots. They gave me 3 days. His patterns lit up, violet bleeding into crimson, burning down his arms like molten veins. But I think I'll be out today. The spider shrieked, the sound rattling the trees to their roots. Naruto set his stance, steady and sharp, his grin never fading. Let's dance. The spider shifted, legs stabbing into the dirt with a sound like cracking stone. Every movement was wrong, too fast, too smooth for something that massive. Naruto narrowed his eyes, blade angled low. He didn't rush. Not yet. Come on, he muttered, voice steady. Show me what you've got. The beast obliged. A hiss tore through the clearing, and in a blink, silk thicker than chains shot from its mandibles. Naruto slashed, the blade severing the strands mid-flight, the tension snapping them back into the trees with a sound like whips cracking. The trunk split open where the web struck, sap spilling like BLD. Strong enough to cut through trees, huh? Cute, Naruto said, smirking. The spider shifted again, testing him. It feinted left, then lashed a leg. Down so fast it blurred. Naruto rolled, dirt exploding where he'd stood, shards of stone peppering his back. He winced but sprang up, blade raised. It was probing him, he realized. Just like he was reading it, it was reading him, its massive body weaving and clicking, every movement measured. Then the malice surged. The spider lunged, mandibles wide, a torrent of webbing spraying out like a storm. Naruto's patterns flared crimson as he moved. He didn't block. He flowed. The soul blade sang as it carved through the air, every slash severing threads before they touched him. His body twisted, spun, flipped off a root, the blade glowing brighter with each cut. Webs hissed past his cheek, one grazing his sleeve and hardening into stone-like fibers before crumbling away. Naruto gritted his teeth, landing light on his feet. Fine. You want me serious? He closed his eyes, inhaled deep. The sword guided him, not his arms, not his training, but something deeper, older, soul deep. His patterns burned hotter, red light bleeding violet at the edges. The spider screamed, charging. And Naruto met it head-on. He slid forward under a descending leg, blade cleaving the chitin clean through. The severed limb hit the ground with a crash, ichor hissing into smoke. Before the beast could recoil, Naruto twisted, blade flashing again, carving a glowing arc across its underbelly. The spider shrieked, body convulsing, but Naruto didn't stop. He flowed like water, cutting through another leg, spinning off the rebound, every strike faster, cleaner. His muscles burned, but his mind was calm, battleborn clarity washing over him. The spider reared back, eyes blazing. Its jaws clacked, and it unleashed a final, desperate surge of webs, enough to drown the clearing. Naruto planted his feet. His patterns flared so bright the forest itself seemed to recoil. Time to end this. Naruto roared. But before he could drive the final strike, the spider lurched back. Its body shuddered, mandibles clicking, then it screamed a sound so sharp and violent Naruto felt his eardrums rupture. Blood ran hot down his neck before his body knitted the damage back together. The forest answered the call. From every shadow, from every crevice between the trees, hundreds of dark creatures surged forth. Twisted wolves with too many eyes, humanoid shapes bent at wrong angles, crawling masses with faces stretched across their torsos. They converged, forming a living wall between Naruto and the spider. Naruto's lips pulled into a grin, sharp and wild. "Oh, so that's how you're gonna play, huh?" He let go. Completely. His chakra and demon energy spilled out in a violent flood, colliding and twisting until the air itself warped. His violet patterns bled crimson, pulsing like open wounds. His whisker marks darkened, lengthened, carving into his skin like brands. His nails hardened into claws, and his orange soul blade vibrated, a swirl of crimson and flame orange wrapping it in light so bright it seemed to burn the night away. The horde shrieked, but it didn't matter. Naruto moved. He was no longer a man fighting demons. He was a storm. His body slid low under a lunging beast, blade shearing it in half at the waist. He twisted, rising with an upward slash that split another's head clean down the middle. His foot planted, his body turned, and 3 more fell in a single arc of steel and flame. Every motion was precise, fluid, unstoppable. He ducked, claws ripping out the throat of one creature as his blade punched through another's chest. He flipped over a mass of writhing limbs, driving his sword down to pin it to the dirt before tearing free in a spray of ash. They clawed, they bit, they swarmed, but they were nothing but tinder in a wildfire. And then steel met steel. The clash rang out sharp, brighter than the forest's endless shrieks. Naruto's blade vibrated against another, black with corruption, humming with malicious energy. Sparks exploded between them. Naruto looked up. The face staring back wasn't a demon. It was a hunter. His eyes were gone, hollow pits of shadow, but his stance, his grip, the swing of his sword, all the discipline of a trained warrior. More shadows flickered behind him. Corrupted hunters. Their soul blades dripping with oily black energy, their movements jerky but lethal. Naruto's breath hitched for only a moment, then steadied. His eyes narrowed, crimson and unflinching. "I'll make it painless," he said, his voice low, heavy with promise. And with that, he sprang back into the fray, blade flashing, claws ready, the corrupted hunters closing in. The corrupted hunters came at him in silence. Their movements were fluid, too fluid for mindless beasts. Every slash, every pivot of their feet, every angle of their blades spoke of discipline, of years of drilling until their bodies became weapons. But Naruto had seen this before. He'd fought trained killers, shinobi who had names and dreams before war twisted them into enemies. He'd clashed against men and women he wished he could have saved. And every time, he'd had to make the same choice. So he closed his heart. The first hunter lunged, blade strkng black in the gloom. Naruto met him head-on, twisting his wrist so their swords screeched past one another. His body flowed with the recoil, spinning into a counterstrike that ripped through the hunter's ribs. The body dissolved into shadow before it hit the ground. The second came in low, blade sweeping for his legs. Naruto leapt, twisting in midair, driving his heel down on the man's head with bone-cracking force. His sword finished the job in the same motion, severing neck from shoulder. 2 more surged together, one fainting high, the other thrusting straight for his gut. Naruto didn't blink. He caught the high strike with his own blade, steel screaming, while his free hand flashed claws first into the chest of the second. His fingers punched through flesh and bone like paper. He tore free, spun, and the one locked against his sword was already falling, split across the torso. For every step he took, another hunter fell. Their precision was perfect. Their teamwork unbroken. But it didn't matter. He'd spent a lifetime cutting through comrades turned enemies. This was no different. Yet it still weighed on him. Each face, each stance reminded him of shinobi he'd once known, his friends, his rivals, the countless nameless warriors on the battlefield who fought with everything they had. And as their bodies dissolved into smoke and shadow at his feet, he couldn't shake the bitter truth: these had been people once. His chest tightened, but his eyes stayed hard, crimson light bleeding through the tears he wouldn't let fall. "Forgive me," he whispered as his blade sang again, splitting another corrupted soul. He moved faster, sharper, letting muscle memory take the place of hesitation. Every strike was final. Every block turned into a kill. He didn't give them a chance to breathe, didn't give himself a chance to feel. Because if he did, the weight of it would crush him. Steel clashed again, sparks tearing through the dark as another corrupted hunter pressed him back. Their strikes weren't wild, they were trained, practiced. Every angle screamed of someone who had once drilled for hours in a courtyard, learning where to cut, where to kill. Naruto slid off the blow, pivoting low, his blade carving across the man's chest. The blackened soul stuff hissed and burned away, the figure dissolving into shadow. Another stepped in before the ash even hit the ground. A woman this time, her blade sharp, her footwork flawless. She moved like a leaf anbu he once sparred against, fast and merciless. Their swords rang, again and again, each clash echoing like bells of morning. Naruto's jaw tightened. He ducked low, swept her legs, and finished it with a slash across her throat. The smoke curled around him like ghosts. A trio came next, their coordination frightening. One lunged for his blind side, another pressed from the front, the third waited to strike when he faltered. Naruto felt it, saw it, the teamwork of shinobi squads and presumably taught to hunter teams, something he used to trust with his life. His chest clenched. He shut it down. With a burst of speed, he shoved forward, driving his shoulder into the first. The soul blade cut the second clean in half. He spun, dragging the first into the third's line of attack, and their blades collided, sparking black. One swift turn of his wrist ended them both. His breathing stayed even. His heart did not. Every strike, every kill felt like pulling apart memories of people he once wanted to protect. He told himself they weren't human anymore. That whatever had corrupted them had stripped away who they used to be. But their precision, the way they fought in formations, the way they never wasted a movement, reminded him too much of himself, of Sasuke, of the countless shinobi who fought believing in something. And here he was, cutting them down. A hunter with a scar over his lip roared, blade raised high. Naruto blocked, pushed, and slammed his forehead into the man's skull. The crack echoed through the clearing. His blade followed, swift and merciless. The body crumpled into smoke at his feet. He stood in the center of the battlefield, surrounded by fading shadows, his blade dripping with their remains. His patterns pulsed violet red, light crawling up his arms and across his chest like fire burning through glass. Naruto's eyes were hard, but behind the crimson glow there was sorrow. He whispered the words so low the forest almost swallowed them. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." Another blade came. He turned, ready. Because no matter how heavy it got, he couldn't stop. Not here. Not now. The corrupted hunters didn't stop. As if the spider itself commanded them, more poured through the trees, blades humming with that oily black energy. Their stances were tight, professional, no wasted movements, no hesitation. Naruto braced, soul blade glowing brighter, its orange-red light flickering against their darkness. The first two came low. He met them head-on, steel ringing in a crossguard. His arm burned as he forced them back, then slid beneath their swings. His blade sang once and both figures dissolved into smoke before they even realized they'd been cut. No time to breathe. 3 more pressed him. They fought as one unit, striking high, low, and staggered with perfect timing. Naruto's instincts screamed this was squad-level combat. Something he once trusted with his life. His gut twisted, but he forced it down, shifting, blocking, parrying, then driving his knee into one's chest. His blade tore through the second, his foot hooked the third, and the ground drank their shadows. His chest rose and fell. Not from exhaustion, but from the weight pressing harder with every clash. He couldn't let it stick. Couldn't let himself feel it. A hunter lunged from behind. Naruto didn't even look. He spun, blade trailing in an orange arc that cut the man down mid-strike. He whispered, too quiet for anyone but himself. "I'm sorry." They kept coming. 5 this time. Their blades blurred, their rhythm perfect. One swung wide, forcing him to duck, another drove for his ribs. Naruto twisted, letting the attack scrape his patterns, searing pain flashing across his side. He gritted his teeth, slammed his elbow into the attacker's jaw, and ripped the blade upward to sever another's neck. His blade clashed against theirs again and again, sparks leaping like fireflies in the dark. He could almost hear echoes of Leaf training grounds with striking wood, laughter after sparring. For a heartbeat, his mind betrayed him, and he saw their faces, old comrades, people he once trusted. "Stop it," he growled, forcing the ghosts away. The next strike shattered their formation. His sword cut 2 down, and the third froze just long enough for Naruto to end him clean. One by one, the shadows burned out, leaving him standing in the circle of silence. His shoulders heaved, his grip trembling not from weakness, but from what he had forced himself to do. Dozens of hunters. People who once lived, trained, fought with conviction. Now nothing but smoke under his blade. Naruto exhaled, forcing steel back into his voice. "You wanted me to close my heart fine." The trees shifted. The ground shook. The spider returned. Its eyes blazed brighter, its fury boiling over as it towered above the clearing, the malice in its body swelling like a storm. And Naruto, bloodied but unbroken, raised his blade once more. Round 2. The spider shrieked, the sound splitting the trees, vibrating through Naruto's ribs. Its body swelled with black malice, limbs stabbing deep into the dirt like spears. The air thickened, choking, every root and shadow trembling under its hatred. Naruto's chest rose and fell, blood dripping from his wounds. The silence left by the fallen hunters still pressed at the edges of his mind, but he shoved it down. No more hesitation. No more holding back. The soul blade pulsed in his grip, red and orange threads twisting into a burning storm. His patterns blazed violet-crimson across his skin, veins glowing like molten fire. His eyes bled into pure rage, pupils slitting, whiskers lengthening, his breath coming out as smoke. "You took them," he snarled, voice low, trembling with fury. "You turned them into puppets." The spider lunged. Naruto roared and charged to meet it. The clearing exploded. Every clash of blade and chitin shattered trees, sparks of crimson light tearing through the dark. Naruto's strikes weren't measured anymore, they were fury unleashed, each swing heavy enough to split stone, each step shaking the earth. He ducked under a leg, carved through it in one sweeping arc, and kept going. Another leg fell. Then another. The spider shrieked, spewing webs in desperation, but they burned on contact, shredded by the raw energy pouring off his blade. His aura howled like a storm, every movement driving deeper into the beast. "This ends now." He leapt high, higher than the treetops, his blade glowing like a sun dragged into the night. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then he brought it down. The spider's body split open, ichor bursting in a geyser of black smoke. The malice that had fueled the forest shattered with it, an eruption of force so violent it ripped the clearing apart. The forest of darkness screamed as it died. Trees collapsed. The ground split. Shadows dissolved into nothing. And through it all, Naruto stood, drenched in sweat and blood, watching the monster writhe one last time before it blew apart in a deafening explosion of black ash. Then silence. The crushing weight lifted. For the first time since he entered, light poured in. Golden beams broke through the canopy, soft and warm, spilling over the battlefield. And with the light came release. Blue particles drifted up, shimmering against the sun, gentle as falling snow. Souls. The hunters he'd cut down, freed from their corruption. Their faces flickered in the glow, young, old, fighters who never deserved the chains that bound them. Naruto watched them go, his chest loosening, his lips tugging into a weary, broken smile. "Rest easy," he whispered. "You're free." His blade dimmed. His patterns flickered. His knees buckled. And as the last of the souls dissolved into the sky, Naruto collapsed, the smile still lingering as the world faded to black. Rumi sat cross-legged on her bed, Kakashi curled up at her feet. She pressed FaceTime, drumming her fingers impatiently against her knee. The screen rang once, twice, then clicked. Naruto's face appeared for half a second. Then his eyes bulged, he yelped like someone had just thrown a kunai at him, and the phone tumbled to the ground. The screen spun dizzyingly before landing sideways on the tatami, giving Rumi a sideways view of Naruto backing away like he'd seen a ghost. "Sorcery," he shouted, pointing dramatically at the glowing screen. "Rumi, your face is in the phone. They trapped you in a box." Rumi blinked. "It's FaceTime, Naruto. It's supposed to do that." He gasped, still pointing. You're alive in there. Did they shrink you?" He grabbed the phone cautiously, holding it at arm's length, glaring at it like it might bite him. Kakashi barked from Rumi's side, tail thumping. Rumi pinched the bridge of her nose. "Naruto. It's a video call. We've done this before. Remember? I showed you how." No, this is different. You're moving. You're blinking at me." He turned the phone upside down, then sideways, muttering, "There's no way this isn't some kind of jutsu. You've been sealed inside this black slab." On her end, Rumi snorted, covering her mouth with her hand. "You're unbelievable." He finally brought the phone close to his face, peering into it like a suspicious old man. His expression softened the moment he saw her smile. "Okay, maybe it's good sorcery," he mumbled. Rumi laughed, leaning closer to her own camera. "Idiot. Just talk to me." Naruto's ears went red, but his grin broke through. Yeah. Naruto was finally sitting cross-legged in front of the phone, still grumbling under his breath. "Stupid sorcery box sealing jutsu tch, I'll figure it out one day." On the other end, Rumi rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. "You don't need to figure it out. You just need to use it." Naruto puffed his cheeks out, pouting. "Easy for you to say you're not the one staring at your girlfriend's soul trapped in a slab." That's when the door creaked open. "Hey, Naruto," Zoey started, only to stop dead in her tracks. Mira walked in behind her, arms crossed. Both of them froze at the sight. Naruto hunched in front of the phone like he was interrogating it, eyes narrowed in suspicion, muttering, "I swear, if someone sealed you in here, I'll find the scroll and—" Zoey slapped a hand over her mouth to stifle the laugh. "Oh. My. God. He's arguing with FaceTime." Mira raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Seriously? You can kill demons but can't handle a phone call?" Naruto whipped his head toward them, face bright red. "It's sorcery. Don't you see her in there?" He shoved the phone at them like proof, nearly dropping it again. On the screen, Rumi was doubled over laughing, tears in her eyes. Naruto, stop embarrassing yourself. Zoey lost it, clutching her stomach. He really thought you got trapped in the phone. Even Mira cracked the faintest smirk. Pathetic, she muttered, though her eyes were glinting. Naruto groaned, burying his face in his hands. I hate all of you. Rumi's laughter only grew. No, you love me. And my sorcery. Naruto peeked out through his fingers, defeated but smiling. Yeah, I do. Believe it. Ayaka jerked upright at the sound, not thunder, not a storm, but a bone-deep explosion that made the floor tremble beneath her. Dust rattled loose from the beams above her head, peppering her shoulders. For a split second, her blood ran cold. She bolted. Her sandals slapped against the stone corridor, her breath coming sharp and fast as she sprinted toward the meeting hall. By the time she burst through the heavy doors, the room was already alive with fury. The elders stood in a half-circle, their usual masks of composure fractured. Their voices clashed like blades. He's destroyed the core, one elder bellowed, his fist slamming the table so hard the wood cracked down the middle. Do you understand? The balance of the forest is shattered. Another elder jabbed a finger toward the doors, his robe snapping with the movement. No, it's cleansed. For the first time in centuries, the forest is bleeding light. Can't you feel it? The air is clear. The rot is gone. A third screeched, his voice brittle with disbelief. Cleansed. Impossible. How could one man accomplish what generations of hunters could not? We've only contained that corruption like trimming weeds back before they choke the world. But to purge it outright? Absurd. Because he's not just a man, another hissed, his tone dripping with venom. He's the half-BLD. A monster wearing the shape of salvation. The chamber descended into chaos. Shouts of abomination and weapon tangled with words like destiny and danger, until Ayaka swayed where she stood in the doorway. Her knuckles whitened on the frame. Their words rattled inside her, but beneath the noise, she knew one thing with terrifying clarity: Uzumaki Naruto had done what none of them had ever dared to hope. She thought of his grin that morning, boyish and careless, like he had no idea the weight of the world was pressing on him. She thought of the scars carved across his chest, the violet-red blaze of his patterns. She thought of the forest, the legendary forest of darkness now torn wide open to sunlight. They weren't furious because he'd failed. They were terrified because he'd succeeded. One elder slammed both palms flat against the table, his voice slicing through the storm. If he can wipe away corruption this easily, what happens when he loses control? What happens when he turns that power on us? The room froze. No one finished the thought. Ayaka's pulse thundered in her ears. Then. Crack. A staff struck the stone floor, sharp as thunder. The noise died instantly. The elder who had first delivered Naruto's trial, silver streaks in his hair, face carved by years of command, rose to his feet. His gaze swept the chamber, cutting through the silence like a blade. He has not only accomplished the goal, the elder said, voice calm, deep, unyielding. He has excelled. The word settled over them like a verdict. For centuries, he continued, leaning into his staff, we sealed, we contained, we endured. But never did we cleanse. And yet this half-BLD has done in a single night what all of us together could not. Uneasy murmurs rippled, but none dared interrupt. Do not mistake me, he went on, his tone darkening, this power is not safe. It never will be. But it is undeniable. Uzumaki Naruto has proven himself worthy of the hunter's trial. And he has proven, his eyes narrowed, voice dropping like a blade's edge, that he cannot be ignored. The chamber was silent. Even the torches along the wall seemed to dim, shadows leaning closer to listen. Ayaka's breath caught. She had never seen the council bend like this, not to demons, not to humans, not to anyone. Yet here they stood, cowed not by Naruto's presence, but by the idea of him. Then the elder struck his staff once more. Crack. The rest of the trials will proceed, he commanded. But hear me now, Uzumaki Naruto is no longer a question of if. He is a question of when. Send a squad. Find him. Bring him back here alive. At once. Hunters bowed and swept from the chamber. Their boots echoing into the night. Ayaka's heart hammered against her ribs. She bit her lip, torn between duty and something more personal. She had volunteered to be his translator out of curiosity because he was the first half-demon hunter she had ever seen, because she wanted to understand what made him different. But now, as she slipped back into the dark, she realized she couldn't bear the thought of anyone else finding him first. Not the council. Not the hunters. Her. She had to reach him before anyone else did. The night pressed heavy as Ayaka ran. The cold air burned her lungs, branches whipped at her arms, but she didn't stop. She'd slipped away while the elders were still arguing over details, her cloak snapping behind her as she tore down the stone steps and into the forest. Every step carried her deeper into the place she had sworn never to enter. The forest of darkness. But it wasn't the same. For the first time in her life, it breathed light. The oppressive weight was gone, no smoke, no suffocating malice. Only the strange silence of a battlefield after the slaughter. Her heart pounded harder with each passing minute. She had to reach him before the others did. Before the council decided whether he was a weapon to be wielded or a threat to be destroyed. Roots clawed at her boots as she pushed through, following the trail of scorched trees and shattered webs. The ground itself seemed torn open, scorched black where violet-red energy had flared, gouged by blade strikes too precise to be random. And then she saw it. A clearing, bathed in pale moonlight. At its center, the ruins of a monster, the spider, or what was left of it. Its shattered carapace oozed ichor that evaporated into smoke, leaving only the scorched earth behind. Around it, fragments of corrupted hunters' blades were scattered like broken glass. And there, slumped against a cracked root, was him. Uzumaki Naruto. His blade still rested limp in his hand, its orange glow flickering weakly. His chest rose and fell in ragged breaths, his shirt torn open and his body marked with fresh wounds. His patterns had dulled to faint violet streaks, curling weakly across his arms like fading ink. But his face. He was smiling. Ayaka froze at the edge of the clearing. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Around him, the air shimmered. Blue motes of light drifted upward, not ash, not smoke, but souls. The freed hunters, their corruption strpped away, dissolving into peace at last. They rose like sparks, vanishing into the night sky. Naruto's smile widened faintly as if he could see them off, even in unconsciousness. Ayaka's throat tightened. The sight was almost too much to hold. She had grown up believing the forest of darkness was eternal. A prison no one could escape, no curse that could be undone. Yet here he was, broken and smiling, because he'd freed the very souls she'd thought were lost forever. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the dirt, pressing a trembling hand to her mouth. Monster, the elders had said. Salvation, others whispered. Ayaka looked at him, barely breathing, and realized the truth might be both. She rose, forcing her legs steady, and crossed the clearing. Slowly, carefully, she knelt beside him. His body radiated heat, his pulse strong beneath the scars. You're insane, she whispered, brushing damp bangs from his forehead. But gods help me, maybe you're exactly what we need. The blue motes swirled above them like stars, fading one by one until only the two of them remained in the clearing. Ayaka gripped his shoulder, grounding herself. I'll get you back before they do, she swore. I won't let them twist this into something it's not. Naruto murmured something in his sleep, a name. Rumi. His lips curved faintly around it. Ayaka's chest tightened again, but she didn't falter. She shifted under his arm, bracing herself to carry his weight. And beneath the pale moon, she dragged him out of the forest, the half-demon who had done the impossible, and the girl who wasn't sure if she was saving him or being pulled into his gravity. The Saja boys staggered off the stage, the roar of the audience still ringing in their ears. Lights flashed, confetti rained down, and the hosts were all smiles as the cameras cut to commercial. To anyone watching, it was perfect, a boy band moment scripted by fate. But once they hit the green room, the air shifted. Jinu tossed his mic on the couch, jaw tight. "We nailed it," he said flatly. "Not excitement, calculation." Ryuk smirked, adjusting his collar in the mirror. "The humans ate it up. They'll be too distracted to notice what we're really doing." Shu sprawled across the armchair, grinning sharp and wolfish. "And the best part? Not a single hunter moved against us. Guess they're too busy babysitting their half-BLD golden boy in Japan." Inu, still fiddling with his perfectly styled pink hair, finally glanced up. His tone was deceptively casual. "Don't get comfortable. Yuzu, whatever his name is, won't stay gone forever. And when he comes back," he trailed off, a shadow slipping behind his words. The room quieted. Even Shu's grin faltered for a second. They all remembered Indra and the way he'd been cut down. Jinu broke the silence, his voice low, almost reverent. "That's why it has to be perfect. Every note, every step, every smile. Because if Uzumaki returns before we've tightened our grip, all of this," he gestured to the glitter-strewn stage still visible through the cracked greenroom door, "will burn." No one argued. For a moment, the only sound was the muffled echo of the crowd still chanting their name. "Saja boys! Saja boys! Saja boys!" And beneath it, unspoken, was the promise, tomorrow, they'd take it even further. The penthouse was quiet except for the low hum of the city outside, neon spilling in through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Rumi sat perched on the couch, legs pulled up to her chest, her patterns flickering faint violet across her arms without her realizing. "They're demons," she said flatly, eyes narrowing as she replayed the performance in her mind. "I felt it the second their patterns rippled through the crowd." Zoey flopped dramatically into the armchair, hugging a pillow. "Okay, but like they were really good." She peeked over the edge of the cushion, voice muffled. "And maybe they don't have to be bad. You and Naruto are proof of that, right?" Rumi's head snapped toward her, sharp. "Don't you dare compare them to him." Zoey shrank a little under her gaze, but didn't look away. Mira, sprawled across the other end of the couch, gave a low, humorless laugh. "Zoey, wake up. Guys like that don't just show up out of nowhere with perfect voices and moves sharp enough to cut glass. That was a performance and a lure. They had the whole square eating out of their hands like puppets." Zoey hesitated. "But still, what if they're not all?" Rumi cut her off, voice edged steel. "It doesn't matter. Intentions don't change what they are. They showed their hand the moment they stepped into Seoul." She smirked coldly, though her eyes still burned with unease. "And the timing? Funny how they show up the second Naruto leaves. They must be afraid of him." Mira sat forward, resting her elbows on her knees. Her expression was calm, but her words were sharp. "Then they're dumber than they look." Zoey frowned, chewing her lip. "So what do we do? Just keep watching their concerts? What if they're using the crowds for something?" Rumi's eyes darkened, her voice quiet but certain. "That's exactly what they're doing. Their patterns rippled wide like waves. Humans can't see it, but we can. They were feeding on the energy, on the people's awe." Myra's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure they don't get to feed unchecked. We watch. We track their schedule. And if they make one wrong move..." Rumi's smirk deepened, her patterns flashing brighter for a heartbeat. "Then they'll learn the hard way they should have been afraid of us." The silence after her words was thick. Zoey groaned into her pillow, muffling, "Ugh, fine. But I'm still gonna say they're hot. Demon or not." Mira rolled her eyes, muttering, priorities, Zoe. And Rumi, despite herself, almost laughed almost. Celine's heels clicked sharply against the stone as she strode through the Hunter compound, her ID flashing under torchlight. The guards stepped aside at once, their eyes following her with uneasy respect. She didn't speak not until she pushed through the tall doors into the council chamber. The air was thick with murmurs and half-snarls, the elders still locked in debate. The scent of incense lingered, but beneath it was something else, the faint, unfamiliar purity of air no longer poisoned by the forest's corruption. Is it true? Celine demanded, her voice slicing through the noise. She faced the council head-on, eyes sharp. Is the forest cleansed? For a long moment, silence. Then the main elder, the one who had delivered Naruto's trial, inclined his head solemnly. Yes. The boy cleansed it. The corruption is gone. The souls trapped within have been freed. A low ripple of voices passed through the chamber, some awed, others edged with unease. Not everyone looked pleased. Not everyone looked grateful. Celine's eyes narrowed. Why do you sound as though this is a bad thing? He did what none of us ever could. He freed the forest. An elder woman stood abruptly, her robes rustling. He ruined the trials, she snapped. That forest was our crucible. How else are we to test new hunters? Without it, how do we measure them? Celine's voice dropped to a growl, her patience splintering. You call that a trial? It was a death trap. You threw promising hunters into corruption and let it devour them. You tortured them. Some were twisted into monsters before they ever had a chance. Murmurs rose again, but the main elder lifted his staff lightly, silencing them. His face was grave. Celine, we have never seen a hunter accomplish this. Cleansing was not the intent. Containment was all we knew. What Uzumaki Naruto did was unexpected. Celine's gaze burned into his, unflinching. Elder Tokiyama, she said, her voice low, dangerous, you, of all people, know the cost of your so-called trials. Yin's brother didn't make it. Or have you forgotten? The chamber went still. The name dropped like a stone in water, rippling through every elder present. Some shifted uncomfortably. Tokiyama's face tightened, just for a moment, before his mask of calm returned. Tokiyama swallowed hard, the staff in his hand trembling just slightly before he steadied it against the stone floor. Yes, he said at last, voice thick but composed. Yes, my son Yan perished. But it is the way of the Hunters Association. Here in Asia, it has always been so. A test of will. A crucible. Only the best, only the strongest, could survive. As much as my son's death tore me apart, he knew the cost. Every hunter who walks these halls knows the cost. The chamber shifted with his words, the weight of tradition pressing down like iron chains. Some elders nodded grimly, others looked away, unwilling to meet Celine's eyes. Tokiyama's gaze hardened, his tone steel now. To rise as a hunter is not to be spared suffering. It is to embrace it. And those who cannot endure were never meant to stand in the ranks. Celine's jaw clenched, her fists tightening at her sides. You dress it up in noble words, but all I hear is cowardice. You let the forest do your work for you, Tokiyama. You let children bleed to prove their worth, and you call it tradition. His face flickered, but he didn't falter. You call it cruelty, he said, but I call it reality. Demons do not care for mercy, Celine. And now this boy has torn down the crucible. What happens when the next generation of hunters fail because they were not forged in fire? The room buzzed again with hushed voices, some murmuring agreement, others stiff with unease. Celine's eyes burned as she took a step closer, her voice cutting across the murmurs like a blade. No, she snapped, you're not afraid of weakness. You're afraid of change. That boy did what none of you ever dared. He cleansed the forest. Freed souls you left to rot for centuries. He's a trailblazer and it terrifies you. Tokima's jaw tightened, the lines in his face deepening. But she didn't stop. You cling to these trials because they make you feel in control. Because you can measure strength by blood spilled, by children buried. But strength isn't born from suffering alone. It's born from will. From heart. From choosing to fight when the world tells you to break. Naruto proved that. The chamber fell quiet again. Even those who had looked away before now watched her, tension heavy in the air. Celine's gaze swept across the council. You call yourselves hunters, guardians of humanity, but you'd rather preserve your rituals than save lives. That boy is everything you should be proud of, and instead, you're trying to twist it into fear. She turned back to Tokima, her voice low, steady, and dangerous. Maybe it's not Naruto who threatens the hunters. Maybe it's the fact that he showed you just how small your traditions really are. The chamber went still. Celine's words hung in the air like smoke after a fire, impossible to ignore, impossible to swallow. A few of the younger hunters at the edges of the room shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between the elders. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Tokima's staff struck the stone floor. Crack. You speak boldly, Celine, he said, his voice measured but edged with iron. But boldness is not wisdom. Do not mistake the boy's recklessness for revolution. His gaze swept across the chamber, hard and unyielding. Uzumaki Naruto is powerful, too powerful. Yes, he cleansed the forest, but at what cost? What if he had failed? What if the corruption consumed him instead of breaking? He leaned forward, the firelight sharpening the lines of his face. Would you call that bravery then, or foolishness? Murmurs rippled again. Some nodded grimly, others glanced at one another, doubt pulling at their expressions. Celine didn't flinch. I'd call it something none of you have had in decades, she fired back. Hope. The word cut like a blade, and this time, no one dared speak over her. The council chamber was silent until the doors creaked again. Ayaka stepped inside, bowing quickly before lifting her head. Her voice carried, calm but urgent. Elders. He has awoken. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A few exchanged looks, disbelief etched in their faces. None of them expected Naruto to rise so soon. Only Celine smiled, sharp and certain. Then it settled. You all saw what he did. He endured the forest of darkness and cleansed it. By your own traditions, that is trial enough. Fire. Endurance. Tell me, elders, her gaze swept the room, unyielding, what do you say now? Has he not passed? No one answered. They didn't need to. The truth hung heavy, none could argue he hadn't. Tokima's shoulders sank, the faintest sigh escaping as he leaned on his staff. Very well, he said at last, the words dragged out. Like stones from a well. When he has recovered, he will proceed to the next trial, the trial of wind and adaptation. Celine's smile vanished, replaced by a scoff. You know as well as I do that he's already proven himself adaptable. He should pass that without question. Tokima's eyes hardened, steel flashing behind the weariness. His staff struck the stone, the sharp sound jolting the chamber into stillness once more. Enough. We have already made exceptions. We shortened his time here. We accepted his cleansing as a success. But no more. He leaned forward, his shadow stretching long in the firelight. He will undergo the final 2 trials. And he will complete them in 1 week. No delays, no favors. He will either persevere, his voice dropped, colder now, or he will be destroyed. There is no middle ground. The words echoed like a death sentence. Ayaka's hands curled at her sides, her heart pounding. Celine's jaw tightened, fury smoldering just beneath the surface. And the elders, though silent, nodded faintly in grim agreement. The fate of Uzumaki Naruto was set. For now. Naruto sat cross-legged on the futon, slurping noodles like they were his last line of defense. Steam curled up into his face, warming the fresh bandages that wrapped around his arm. He wasn't hiding. Nope. Definitely not. Just enjoying his ramen before his imminent execution. Execution by girlfriend. To be fair, how was he supposed to know he wouldn't be allowed to keep his phone during the trials? Nobody told him that part until they yanked it away. If he'd known, he would have at least called Rumi when he landed. Now. Gods, she was going to kill him. He groaned, dropping his chopsticks into the bowl. Man, this is worse than fighting the spider. At least the spider didn't glare at me when I forgot to text. Footsteps echoed down the hall outside his quarters. He jolted, nearly upending the bowl. Hot broth sloshed dangerously close to his lap. He froze, holding it steady like it was a newborn child. Phew, he muttered, exhaling hard. Almost lost a soldier there. The footsteps drew closer, deliberate. Naruto straightened, trying to look like he hadn't just been sulking over noodles. He sat up straighter, forcing his grin back into place. All right, he whispered to himself, time to face the music. Rumi's wrath or another elder, doesn't matter. The door slid open. The door slid open, and in swept Selene, her presence sharp as ever, heels clicking against the wooden floor. Naruto froze mid-slurp, chopsticks hanging comically in the air. Oh. Hey, Selene. How's it going? His grin was too wide, too bright, nerves twitching behind it. For half a second, his brain jumped to the most absurd conclusion, maybe Rumi had sent Selene as an assassin. Yeah, that would track. Death by priestess for not calling. Selene arched a brow, her gaze flicking from the half-empty ramen bowl to his sheepish face. You look remarkably alive for someone who nearly leveled a cursed forest. Naruto laughed a little too loud. Hey yeah, you know me. Hard to kill, you know. Her eyes narrowed, the corner of her mouth twitching. Relax, Uzumaki. I'm not here to gut you. Naruto muttered under his breath, that's exactly what an assassin would say, before shoving more noodles into his mouth as a distraction. Selene sighed, crossing her arms. Rumi's worried sick, you know. And you? Sitting here eating ramen like it's just another Tuesday. Naruto winced, his grin faltering. He set the bowl aside reluctantly. Yeah, I know. I'll call her. He scratched the back of his head, sheepish, was procrastinating the incoming wrath. For the faintest moment, something like amusement flickered in Selene's eyes before it was gone. Then let me give you a piece of advice, don't keep her waiting any longer. Even assassins can't save you from that. Selene's gaze softened as she studied him, her arms no longer crossed, her tone quieter now. But I'm not here to scold you for neglecting Rumi. I came because I heard you freed the souls. Naruto's fingers clenched tighter around the chopsticks, but the ramen had long gone cold. The steam that once curled up from the bowl was gone, replaced in his mind by the smoke of burning battlefields. His voice dropped low, rough around the edges. Do you know how hard it is, he said, eyes fixed on the broth, to cut someone down knowing they weren't supposed to die that way? They had dreams, families, people waiting for them. Every time I swing, I wonder, was there another way? Could I have saved them instead? The silence stretched between them, heavy as a sword. Selene didn't answer at once. Her lips pressed together, her gaze distant, as though she was staring straight through the walls. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the ache of years buried too deep. Yes, Naruto, she whispered. I know exactly what that feels like. And so did Iin. Naruto's head snapped up, his eyes widening. She had spoken his name before, at the grave, but never like this. Never with such rawness. He was a hunter. Naruto asked carefully, afraid to break whatever fragile truth was unraveling in front of him. Selene nodded, shoulders lowering as though she'd been waiting years for someone to ask. Yes. He was. And once, he had to kill his own brother. Her voice cracked but pressed on. Corruption had eaten him alive. There was no saving him. But striking him down it destroyed Iin inside. I think a part of him never healed from it. Naruto's chest constricted, as if invisible chains had tightened around his ribs. Indra's face burned behind his eyes, proud, furious, broken, but still his brother in every way that mattered. He remembered holding him in those last moments, the way Indra smiled faintly before fading into nothing. I held Indra as he died, Naruto admitted, his voice hoarse. I killed him, but I couldn't let him go like an enemy. He deserved more than that. Even if he hated me. He dragged a hand across his face, not wiping tears, just steadying himself. The guilt doesn't fade, though. It stays. Every night. Celine's gaze softened, her mask slipping. For once, she wasn't the cold priestess, the calculating guardian. She was simply a woman who knew grief far too well. Iin carried that same guilt, she said gently. But before he died, he taught me something. Sometimes strength isn't measured by the lives you save. It's in bearing the weight of the ones you couldn't. And still finding the courage to fight again the next day. Naruto swallowed, throat tight, but nodded slowly. Then that's what I'll do. I'll carry them. Indra. The corrupted hunters. My world's shinobi. All of them. But I won't let it break me, not again. For a long moment, Celine just studied him. She saw at his scars, his fire, the way he carried both demon and human in one body without falling apart. And for the first time, she thought she glimpsed what Iin might have seen in Naruto once, the will to never give up. Her lips curved, not in mockery but in something soft, something true. Iin would be proud of you. Naruto's eyes widened. The words hit harder than any blade, shaking something loose in his chest. His vision blurred faintly, but no tears fell. He wouldn't let them. He just clenched his jaw, his breath uneven, and gave her the smallest, trembling smile. Thank you, he said, voice rough. That means more than I can say. Celine didn't reply. She didn't need to. For the first time, the space between them wasn't filled with distance or distrust, it was filled with shared grief, shared hope, and the weight of two people carrying the legacies of the dead. Celine's eyes lingered on him for a moment longer, searching his face as if she wanted to say more. But instead, she stood, smoothing the folds of her cloak back into place. The mask of composure slipped over her features again, though the softness from before still glimmered faintly beneath it. She moved toward the door, her heels clicking lightly against the stone floor. Just before she stepped out, she paused, her voice quieter than before. Call Rumi, she said simply. She worries more than she'll ever admit. Naruto looked down at his half-empty ramen bowl, then back up at her, and nodded. His voice was steady this time, the boyish grin tucked away for something more serious. Yeah. I know. The door shut softly behind her, leaving him alone with the silence. Naruto set the bowl aside and leaned back against the wall, exhaling through his nose. He thought of Rumi's smile, of the way her patterns glowed faint violet when she was nervous, of how she always pretended to be stronger than she felt. He clenched his fist lightly, a vow burning in his chest. He would call her. He would come back to her. No matter what these trials took from him. Naruto hesitated before pressing call. His thumb hovered, his chest tight like he was about to walk into battle. The screen rang once, twice. And then she appeared. Rumi. Her hair was down, spilling across her shoulders, still damp from a late shower. No makeup, no spotlight, no audience. Just her. Soft, unguarded, so appealing it made his throat catch. His voice came out hushed, almost reverent. How has it been, my North Star? Her lips curved into a smile, but her eyes gave her away tired, heavy, aching. That demon we saw, he's back. And he has a boy band. Naruto bolted upright, heart pounding. What? Did he touch you? Hurt you? Is he stealing souls? She shook her head, but the tension stayed in her shoulders. Not yet. If he had, we'd have struck already. But they're always in crowds. We can't isolate them without putting people at risk. He frowned, rubbing his thumb over the violet glow threading his arm. Could they be touching the Han moon? Rumi mirrored him without realizing, tracing the faint shimmer along her skin. No. It's still strong. But they only showed up after you left. Naruto's jaw tightened. Then they're testing limits. Watching you. They should be more scared of you three than me. That got a small smirk out of her. That's what I told Zoey and Mira. If we can catch them alone, they're done. For a moment, their gazes locked, and the world outside the screens fell away. It was just them. Miles apart, but bound all the same. Naruto leaned closer, grin tugging at his lips, though his eyes stayed soft. These phones really do have good cameras, huh? She blinked. What do you, then it hit her. Her face flushed scarlet. Naruto. You're at the association that's not even your room. What if someone walks in? He chuckled, warm and boyish, though the ache in his chest never eased. Worth a try. Rumi groaned, covering her face with one hand. You're impossible. But the blush lingered, betraying her. Her tone shifted, gentler now. Anyone interesting over there? Naruto scratched at his cheek, frowning like the thought confused him. They gave me a translator. Ayaka. She's nice, but she keeps blushing at me. Maybe she thinks my whiskers look weird and feels embarrassed laughing at them. Rumi laughed, but it came out too sharp, too tight. He was loyal gods, he was loyal and completely oblivious. She trusted him with her life. But the thought of someone else noticing the little things she loved about him made something sharp twist inside. He must have felt her mood shift, because his grin softened into something only for her. Hey, he whispered, his voice low, tender. You're all I see, Rumi. Even here. Especially here. Her eyes stung. She pressed her lips to the screen, the closest thing to a kiss the miles would allow. He mirrored her, their breaths fogging the glass for a heartbeat. Good night, my North Star, he murmured, his voice thick. Her whisper was barely audible, but he felt it like a blade in his chest. Come back to me soon. The call ended, the black screen staring back. But their patterns glowed faintly violet, thrumming across the distance, tying them together no matter how far apart. Rumi sat in the quiet after the screen went black, her breath caught in her throat. The room felt too big, too hollow without his voice filling it. She held the phone to her chest like it was a lifeline, eyes closing as if pressing it harder could bridge the distance. Kakashi, curled at the foot of the bed, gave a soft whine, sensing her mood. She reached down to scratch behind his ears, whispering, "He's okay. He's okay." Maybe it was more for herself than the dog. Her patterns shimmered faint violet across her skin, gentle as a heartbeat. They always pulsed strongest when she thought of him, like the Han moon itself wanted to remind her, you are not alone. Still, she curled tighter into the blankets, the ache heavy in her chest. Across the sea, Naruto lay back on the too-stiff mattress in his quarters. His phone screen was dark in his hand, but he hadn't let it go yet. He could still see her face burned into it, damp hair falling into her eyes, the way her blush spread when he teased her, the way her smile cracked open something soft in his chest. He chuckled under his breath, though it sounded more like a sigh. She's gonna kill me for messing around like that. His grin faded into something quieter, more fragile. But at least I got to see her smile. He set the phone on his chest, staring at the ceiling. The silence pressed in, but for once, it didn't feel suffocating. His scars ached, his body was sore, but his heart felt steadier, like her voice had anchored him across the miles. "Good night, Rumi," he whispered to the dark. And as if the Han moon itself answered, both of their patterns flared at the same time, violet threads glowing faint against their skin. Apart, yet still together, they drifted into restless sleep. Naruto crouched in the living room of their borrowed flat in Seoul with a red piece of cloth, 2 chopsticks, and an expression that screamed, "Genius plan in progress." Sitting across from him was the dog, eyes narrowed with suspicion as Naruto carefully tied the makeshift mask around its head. "Trust me, boy, this is destiny," Naruto whispered like he was unveiling some forbidden jutsu. "By day, you're just a dog. But by night," he tugged the cloth snug, dramatic paws locked and loaded. "You're Daredog, the blind protector of Korea." The dog sneezed through the mask and tried to paw it off. Naruto clapped his hands. "No, no, no. Heroes don't quit before their origin story." He taped 2 chopsticks into an X across the dog's back like twin batons. "Perfect. You even got weapons. You're ready to fight crime." Before the dog could protest again, Naruto pumped chakra into a random toad he had found outside. The poor creature swelled slightly, blinking in confusion before Naruto plopped it on the coffee table like a trusted lieutenant. Next came a squirrel Naruto had lured in with peanuts, now perched proudly on the armrest and scattering crumbs everywhere. Naruto stepped back, arms crossed like a commander surveying his elite squad. "All right, team. Korea is full of crime, corruption, and probably evil demon boy bands. But tonight," he raised a fist, "we strike fear into their hearts. We're the Justice League of the Leaf." The toad croaked, clearly overwhelmed by too much chakra. The squirrel sneezed. "The dog just stared like this is not my contract." Naruto nodded seriously. "Exactly. You feel the weight of destiny too, huh?" He whipped out a hand-drawn chart. Crude stick figures were labeled. Dog Devil, Super Toad, Acorn Knight, and of course, Captain Hokage. You see, with your echolocation, Dare Dog, and your scroll knowledge, Super Toad, plus your nut powers, Acorn Knight were unstoppable. The squirrel immediately hurled a peanut shell at Naruto's forehead. "Rude," Naruto muttered, peeling it off. At that exact moment, the door swung open. Rumi, Zoey, and Mira stepped in mid-conversation, only to freeze at the bizarre tableau before them. Rumi narrowed her eyes. "Naruto. What is this?" Naruto beamed. "Rumi. You came at the perfect time. I was about to induct new members. You'll be Wonder Rumi. Zoey can be a Flashdance. And Mira your Bat Mira." Zoey tilted her head. "So you turned a squirrel into Batman before me?" The squirrel puffed out its chest, squeaking proudly, crumbs still falling from its fur. Mira folded her arms. "Naruto, this is peak stupidity, even for you." Rumi rubbed her temple but couldn't hide the twitch of a smile. "You kidnapped woodland animals for a council meeting in Korea?" Naruto jabbed a finger toward the squirrel, now scrambling up the curtains. "I didn't kidnap him. He volunteered. Look, he's scouting the perimeter." The squirrel instantly lost its grip and plummeted onto the chakra-pumped toad, who croaked furiously and hopped away. The dog ripped off the mask and bolted through the open door. Naruto blinked at the chaos. "Okay, maybe we need more team training." Rumi sighed, but amusement won out on her lips. "Or maybe you need help. A lot of it." Zoey leaned toward Mira, whispering, "Next week, he's gonna recruit pigeons, isn't he?" Mira deadpanned. "Bet on it." Naruto woke up refreshed, the memory of Rumi's face on the screen still lingering in the back of his mind like a dream he didn't want to end. For the first time since stepping foot in Takayama, he didn't feel like the walls were closing in. The door creaked open, and Ayaka stepped in. Her cheeks went crimson the moment her eyes landed on him shirtless again, stretching the last knots of sleep from his shoulders. Naruto tilted his head. You alright? You keep turning red around me. If you're sick, you should see a healer. That much fever isn't good. Ayaka nearly dropped the papers in her hands. I am fine, she squeaked, looking anywhere but at him. She cleared her throat quickly, forcing her voice steady. You are to meet the elders in 5 minutes. Naruto blinked. 5 minutes? I thought I had a day between trials. Ayaka hesitated, her eyes flickering toward the floor. You caused waves. Cleansing the forest the way you did, freeing the souls. Some of the elders are unsettled. Elder Tokiyama has decreed you will finish the trials by the end of this week. Naruto stilled, then let out a low whistle. End of the week, huh? That's 2 days from now. His grin crept in, boyish and unshaken. Guess that means this 1-month trip's about to get cut short. Not bad. The sooner I finish, the sooner I get to go home. He stood, tugging on his shirt, the thought of Rumi's smile steadying his chest more than any rest ever could. He waited in the center of the room, waiting for his next task. Kneeling until the elder motioned for him to stand. Naruto rose from his kneel, the torches of the council chamber burning low, their flames bending in the draft of some unseen current. He felt it before Ayaka even spoke, the shift in the air, like the trial was already waiting for him. Elder Tokiyama's staff cracked against the stone. His voice rumbled low, each word heavy. Ayaka translated, though her throat worked with unease. You have endured fire. The crucible that strips away weakness. But wind is different. Wind adapts. Wind cuts. Wind whispers lies in your ear until you cannot tell truth from deception. The second trial is the Hall of Shifting Veils. She drew a breath, her hands trembling around the parchment she carried. Inside, there are no fixed walls. No fixed ground. Illusions cloud the eye, sounds mislead the ear. Your enemies are not only the demons who dwell there but your own memories. Your own doubts. Every weakness of mind, every fear of heart, will walk beside you in the dark. The hunters lining the walls shifted at her words. A few clenched their fists. One bowed his head as if in mourning. Naruto caught at the mark of those who knew others who had entered the trial and never come back. Tokiyama's gaze was unrelenting. A blade cannot save you here. Only clarity. Only adaptability. If you hesitate, you die. If you falter, you are consumed. If you trust the wrong ally, you are lost forever. Ayaka's voice faltered at the end, almost a whisper, but Naruto didn't look away. His violet-red patterns flickered faintly along his arms, answering the weight of the words. For a moment, silence. Then Naruto's lips curved into a small grin. Not cocky, not loud but steady. So that's it, he muttered. A maze full of tricks. Illusions. Doubts. He tilted his head back just enough to meet Tokiyama's eyes. His own burned steady, unflinching. Been walking through that kind of storm my whole life. The council chamber rippled with unease. Some muttered that he was reckless. Others stared in quiet disbelief. But Ayaka's breath hitched because she realized he wasn't boasting. He wasn't underestimating what waited for him. He knew exactly how dangerous it was. And still, he was ready to step forward. Tokiyama lifted his staff one final time. Then may the wind show us who you truly are. The chamber doors groaned open, and a cold current swept through, rattling the torches. Naruto squared his shoulders, tightened his grip on the soul blade at his hip, and walked forward into the waiting dark. The practice room still buzzed faintly with the echo of their last song, the mirrors fogged with their breath. Jinu paced like a man with lightning in his veins, grinned sharp as ever. Everything's working. The crowds love us, the cameras can't look away, and the hunters, he laughed low. They're still too cautious to make a move. Ryuk scoffed, tossing his towel onto the floor. And we're no closer to them than we were on day one. All this performing, all this smiling for humans, it's noise. Nothing more. Inu leaned against the wall, twirling his pen idly between his fingers. His pink hair gleamed under the studio lights, but his eyes were flat. Noise won't matter when Uzumaki comes back. He'll sniff us out the second he's here. And if he does, his voice dropped lower. Indra all over again. The silence that followed was heavy. Then Jian, quiet until now, blew a strand of gray hair out of his eyes and straightened. "We're waiting for hunters to notice us," he said coolly. "That's the problem. We need to force them closer." Shu chuckled lazily from the floor, raising an eyebrow. "And how do you plan to do that?" Post a wanted ad. "Dear hunters, please come slay us, sincerely yours the Saja boys." Jian's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "No. We draw them out where they can't resist. Hunters live to investigate. If we announce a joint signing autographs, photos, a chance to see us up close, it'll be irresistible. They'll slip hunters in the crowd to watch us, guaranteed. We won't even have to hunt them. They'll walk right into our den." Ryuk's smirk returned. "A signing, huh? Clever. Humans will line up for hours. Hunters will follow." And in the chaos, his patterns rippled faintly under his skin. "We'll finally see who's hiding in their ranks." Juno stopped pacing, his grin spreading slow and dangerous. "Good, Jian. Very good. A honey trap in broad daylight." He glanced at each of them, voice sharp with finality. "Prepare yourselves. When the hunters come sniffing, we make sure they don't leave." The others nodded, the decision sealing itself in silence. On the surface, it would look like nothing more than another boy band feeding their adoring fans. But beneath it, every smile, every signature, every perfect note was bait. The Saja boys weren't waiting anymore. They were setting the stage. The penthouse buzzed with its usual chaos before a concert, makeup brushes clattering, heels tapping against marble, Zoey humming lines off-key just to annoy Mira. But Rumi's room was quieter, tucked one floor down. Her place wasn't lined with racks of sequins or glimmering accessories. It was simpler, quieter. Naruto's jacket still draped over the back of the couch, Kakashi sprawled across a pillow on the rug. The air still smelled faintly like him, warm and grounding. Rumi pulled her braid tighter as she stood in front of the mirror, the faint violet shimmer of her patterns tracing along her arms before fading. She told herself it was just nerves for the show, not the other storm churning inside her. Naruto was miles away, wrapped in whatever the Hunters Association was forcing on him. And now, the Saja boys had plastered their perfect faces all over Seoul. "Rumi." Zoe's voice came through the door, muffled but bright. "You're not hiding in your little love nest, are you? We gotta roll in 20. Rumi rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips anyway. She grabbed her jacket and jogged upstairs into the Huntress penthouse proper. The chaos upstairs felt like stepping onto a different planet. Zoe was already in her glittering jacket, Mira double-checking their set list like a commander before battle. "You okay?" Mira asked, sharp eyes flicking over Rumi like she could read her pulse. "I'm fine," Rumi said, pulling her stage boots on. Then, quieter, just thinking about them. She didn't need to say who. Zoe groaned dramatically, flopping onto the couch. "Ugh, the Saja boys. Don't get me wrong, they're hot," she admitted, twirling a strand of hair, "but they're way too shiny. Like, unnaturally shiny." Mira snorted. "That's because they're demons, idiot." Zoe shot up, narrowing her eyes. "Hey. Don't call me an idiot when I'm agreeing with you." Rumi shook her head, but the tightness in her chest didn't ease. She glanced out the window, Seoul glowing under neon, the streets alive with fans heading toward their venue. And somewhere in the same city, Jinu and his boys were stirring their own crowd. She clenched her fists, her voice steady even though her stomach twisted. "They're moving in while Naruto's gone. That's no coincidence. They're baiting us. Myra's eyes met hers in the reflection of the glass. Cold, sharp, unflinching. Then let's not take the bait. We play smart. We play loud. And we don't give them an opening. Zoey hopped up, already spinning toward the door. And we slay our set while we're at it. If they think they can outshine Huntress, they've got another thing coming. For a heartbeat, Rumi imagined Naruto standing there, smirking that cocky grin of his and saying, "Believe it." She squared her shoulders, falling into step with her sisters. Concert or not, demons or not, she wasn't going to let them see her falter. Huntress didn't just sing under lights. They hunted under shadows. And tonight, they'd do both. Naruto moved through the dark, his step steady but his nerves sharp. The air here pressed in close, not just empty black, but suffocating, thick, like walking through tar. He closed his eyes, reached deep for sage mode. Nothing. Not even a flicker. Nature's flow, normally rushing to him like a tide, was silent here. TCH. His hand tightened on the hilt of his soul blade. Figures. He tried the other well inside him, the demon energy that burned violet red through his veins. He pushed, willed it to flare, to light the way. Instead, the power sparked once and then fizzled, scattering like sparks against a wall he couldn't see. His patterns prickled across his skin, then went cold. Blocked, too? Naruto muttered. His voice sounded wrong in the dark, swallowed as soon as it left his lips. He almost laughed, but it came out as a growl. Guess this is what they meant by adaptation. Can't rely on sage mode. Can't rely on demon power. Just me. The only thing left was the blade. The orange glow throbbed faintly, weak and shallow, just enough to sketch out his silhouette. Even that light didn't stretch more than an arm's length from his chest. He turned the sword slowly, the dim glow glinting off nothing but endless black. Naruto exhaled through his nose. Fine then. If that's the game, I'll play. He crouched low, one hand brushing the stone beneath his feet. The surface was rough, uneven. He focused on the sound of his own breath, on the scrape of his boots against rock, on the faint hum of his blade in his grip. If everything else was strpped away, then all he had left was himself. The silence pressed tighter, like the dark was listening. Naruto's grin curled sharp in the shadows. Hope you're paying attention. 'Cause I don't break easy. And he walked forward into the dark, the lone glow of his sword a heartbeat against the void. The dark seemed endless. Step after step, the void pressed heavier on his chest. Then. A sound broke the silence. Soft. Fragile. A child's sob echoing through the black. Naruto froze, every muscle on edge. His grip on the soul blade tightened as he turned his head, the faint glow of orange light stretching just enough to outline a shape on the ground ahead. A boy. No older than 6, knees scraped raw, clutching them with tiny hands. His face was blotchy, tears strkng threw dirt on his cheeks. The dim outline of a tiny apartment framed him, paper walls sagging, floorboards cracked, air stale with loneliness. Naruto's breath caught in his throat. It was him. The child sobbed harder, whispering words Naruto could barely hear, words he had buried long ago. Why doesn't anyone come for me? Why doesn't anyone care? Naruto's chest tightened, an ache cutting sharper than any blade. He remembered this. The sting of hunger. The echo of silence in a house too empty. The way his knees burned after tripping in the dirt, waiting for someone to pick him up. And no one ever did. For a moment, the ache almost rooted him in place. His blade dipped slightly, the orange glow flickering as if it felt his hesitation. Then Celine's voice came back to him cold, unyielding, the lesson etched into him during training, a weak sword has no place in battle. Naruto exhaled through his nose, steadying his grip. His patterns hummed faintly against his skin, not with power, but with resolve. He whispered, so quiet only the dark could hear, "Sorry, kid. But I can't stop for you." And he stepped past the crying child, blade raised, the image fading into smoke the moment he left it behind. The sobbing died away, swallowed by silence again. Naruto's heart still ached, but his stride didn't falter. The child's sobs faded into the void behind him, but the ache lingered like a scar pressed fresh again. Naruto forced his steps steady, blade humming faintly, its glow weak as a guttering candle. The darkness turned into a clearing. Then another voice cut through the silence. Pathetic. From the gloom stepped Iruka, but not the man Naruto remembered. This Iruka's face twisted with disgust, his eyes colder than winter. "I wasted my time on you," the illusion spat. "You were never worth saving. You'll never be more than the monster inside you." Naruto's chest tightened, his grip faltering for just a second. The word stabbed deeper than kunai, echoing every whisper he'd heard as a child. But he straightened, jaw locking. "Iruka-sensei believed in me when no one else did. You're not him. You're nothing but smoke in the dark." He walked forward. The illusion shattered into ash. The silence returned, heavier than before. Before his eyes he was taken back to the valley of the end. Then laughter. Familiar, sharp. Sasuke stepped out, the Sharingan glowing like twin wounds. His smirk was cold, cruel. "Still chasing me, Naruto? Still desperate to prove yourself? You'll never be my equal. You'll never save anyone. You couldn't even save me." The blade wavered, Naruto's breath ragged. Of all the ghosts, this one cut deepest. Sasuke brother, rival, the one he could never stop chasing. His hand trembled, then steadied. "I couldn't save you," Naruto admitted quietly. "But I learned from it. And I won't stop saving others because I failed once." Sasuke's smirk faltered. The figure dissolved into shadows. Naruto pressed on, each step heavier. Soon he was back in the village, hidden in the leaves, his old village. Then another voice, low and venomous, "You should never have been born." His blood froze. The figure that emerged this time wasn't twisted by corruption, but eerily calm. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Behind him, Kushina's fiery hair glowed faintly. They weren't smiling. They weren't proud. "You're a mistake," Minato said, his voice like ice. "Our sacrifice gave the world a monster, not a son." Kushina's eyes burned with tears. "We should have let you die with us." Naruto staggered, blade nearly slipping from his hands. His patterns flickered, dimming under the weight of their words. For one heart-shattering second, he almost believed it. But then he remembered. Kushina's laughter. Minato's smile. The warmth they'd left him with on the night of their goodbye. He snarled, teeth bared. "That's not who they were. My parents loved me. They gave everything for me, and I'll honor them by living, not breaking." The illusions cracked apart, scattering into blue motes that vanished into the void. Naruto stood panting, shoulders heavy, eyes burning. He lifted the blade again, forcing his legs forward. His heart ached, but his resolve only hardened. The void whispered once more, soft, coaxing, "Turn back. You'll only hurt them in the end." Naruto grinned through clenched teeth, the kind of grin that promised defiance. "Then I'll just keep moving forward. Even if it kills me." The air shifted, heavier, darker, and he knew the trial wasn't done. Not yet. The dark pressed in tighter with every step, suffocating, pressing against his ribs like it wanted to crush him from the inside out. Naruto's soul blade gave off only the faintest glow, a sputtering ember instead of the roaring flame he was used to. His patterns along his arms shimmered weakly violet red, flickering as if the hall itself was trying to snuff them out. Then came the first voice. "Brat." Naruto froze. His breath hitched. Out of the shadows walked Jiraiya, but not the man he remembered. His grin was gone, his eyes hollow and cruel. You were never the child of prophecy, the old man spat, spittle flying. I lied. I hated you. You stole Minato. You stole Tsunade. You left me with nothing but failure. You should have died instead of Sasuke. At least he could have stopped Kaguya. The words cut deep, but then Jiraiya lunged. His giant frame moved with unnatural speed, a spiked staff clashing against Naruto's soul blade. Sparks flared. Naruto staggered, his arms trembling under the weight. That's not you, Naruto snarled, pushing back, teeth gritted. The real Rasengan believed in me. His blade flared crimson for a heartbeat, splitting the illusion's chest. Jiraiya's face twisted with hatred before dissolving into smoke. Naruto barely had time to breathe before another figure slid from the dark. Kakashi. Mask lowered, single eye glinting sharp with cold disappointment. Lightning crackled in his palm, the scream of a Chidori echoing through the void. You're not even a leaf shinobi anymore, Kakashi's voice was steel, merciless. You abandoned us. You're a rogue. A nuke nin. You should have died instead of Sasuke. Naruto's stomach dropped. Kakashi-sensei. The Chidori struck, forcing Naruto to block with both hands on the hilt. Sparks tore through his arms, burning his skin. Kakashi pressed close, snarling. You think you could protect anyone? You let everyone down. Naruto's knees buckled, the weight of guilt nearly crushing him. But memory surged, the day Kakashi pressed that headband back into his hand, silently telling him he was worthy. No, Naruto roared, twisting with every ounce of strength. His blade flared red-orange, cutting through the Chidori and splitting the illusion apart in a burst of smoke. His chest heaved. He had no time to rest. Sasuke should have lived instead. The voice cut deeper than any blade. Sakura stepped out of the shadows, her fists glowing with monstrous strength. Tears streaked her face, but her words were venom. No one ever loved you. Not me. Not anyone. You were just a burden. I pitied you. That's all. Her fist swung, smashing into his side with bone-cracking force. He flew across the floor, coughing BLD, blade skittering away. Sakura-chan, he gasped, dragging himself up. His ribs screamed. She came again, her fist like a hammer, her voice breaking into a scream. You're not a hero. You're the boy no one wanted. He caught her fist on his blade just in time, his arms shuddering under the impact. His vision blurred. His heart clenched. But then he remembered her trembling hands healing him, her tears when pain leveled the village, her refusal to leave him no matter what. You did love me, he said through gritted teeth, forcing her back. Not the way I once wanted, but as family. As a teammate. You never abandoned me. His blade surged, splitting her form apart in a flare of violet light. She screamed as she dissolved. Naruto staggered. His breath ragged. His body broken. But the darkness wasn't done. The villagers came next. Dozens of them, faceless and howling. Nobody loves you. You're the demon. We hate you. You're to blame. They swarmed him, shadows clawing, tearing at his clothes, his flesh, their nails like kunai. His blade dimmed under the weight of their hatred, his knees slammed into the dirt. He saw his child self in the mob's eyes, scraped knees, tears streaming down in a cold apartment, no one to comfort him. No hand to reach out. No warmth. The blade slipped. His vision blurred. Then a voice. Not theirs. Hers. You're my North Star. Naruto's head snapped up. His chest heaved, and his patterns roared back to life, violet bleeding crimson until his whole body burned with light. He gripped the hilt, locking it tight. You can scream all you want, he growled, dragging himself to his feet. But I'm not that kid anymore. I'm not alone. I'll never be alone again. The blade ignited. Orange and crimson flames tore outward, obliterating the mob in one swing. The shadows howled before vanishing, smoke ripping apart like paper in fire. When the echoes faded, Naruto stood alone in the silence, chest heaving, sweat dripping into the dirt. His blade glowed steady now, bright, unyielding. His eyes burned, wet but unbroken. Naruto stood trembling, the glow of his blade still pulsing steady after tearing through the mob of villagers. His breaths came sharp, his body burning, but for the first time since entering this cursed trial, his footing felt solid. Then a wet sound. A cough, thick and rattling. Naruto turned. Iin staggered from the shadows, his body pale, his robe soaked through with blood. The fatal wound that claimed him still gushed as if it had only just been dealt. His steps left red splatters in the dirt, his eyes hollow yet burning with accusation. Naruto froze. His grip on the blade faltered. Iin. The man's voice was raw, dragging across the clearing like barbed wire. Why did I fight for you? Why did I die for a demon? Naruto's chest clenched so tight he thought it would break. His scars, his losses, all of it flared at once. He had seen enemies fall, comrades die, but this cut deeper. His blade dipped. His patterns flickered. The blood pooled at Yin's feet, dark and endless, dripping into the earth like it would drown them both. You stole everything, Iin hissed, my life, my dreams, I'll never be back with Celine because of you. Naruto's knees buckled, the weight of the words pressing him down harder than any enemy's strike. His throat closed. His chest screamed. This hurts. This one hurts more than all the others combined. He wanted to argue, wanted to scream back, but the words wouldn't come. The wound wasn't physical. It was guilt. Then, like a spark cutting through smoke, another memory surfaced. Yin's voice, not here, not twisted, but at the end. His last words. The ones Naruto hadn't dared replay until now. He's like a son. Naruto's eyes widened. His breath caught. The blade in his hand trembled, then steadied. His patterns flared brighter, pulsing violet red against the shadows trying to choke them out. His voice cracked, raw but firm. No. That's not who you were. That's not what you said. The illusionin's face twisted, blood pouring faster, hatred in his eyes. Liar. Naruto's tears burned hot down his cheeks, but his stance didn't falter. He raised his blade, his hands shaking but strong. You said I was like a son. You believed in me. And I won't let this nightmare take that away. He roared, swinging with all the pain, all the love, all the fury burning in his chest. The crimson-orange arc cut straight through the illusion, splitting Yin's form into motes of blue light. For a heartbeat, Naruto swore he saw him, not the bloody husk, not the screaming wraith, but Iin as he truly was. Stern, proud, tired and smiling faintly. Then he was gone. Naruto dropped to one knee, chest heaving, blade planted in the dirt like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His eyes burned, wet but unbroken. That one, he whispered hoarsely. That one almost broke me. Naruto froze the instant he saw her. Miss Huang. Not in the forest, not behind a counter, but here, in this dark chamber of the trial. The smell of broth hung faintly in the air, and the illusion of her was so clear it made his heart twist. She slid a steaming bowl toward him across an invisible counter, just like she always had. His breath caught. He staggered forward and embraced her, clinging like a drowning man. She was warm. Real. Alive. The world around him blurred as he buried his face against her shoulder, forgetting everything else, the trial, the blade, even himself. Stay, she whispered, voice soft as the broth she used to ladle. Sit down. Eat. You don't have to fight anymore, Naruto. Not here. Not with me. The boy inside him screamed to listen, to sit and never move again. Gods, how badly he wanted to. She had been the only one who looked at him with kindness when no one else did. But another memory forced itself in. That day. The demons. The helplessness. He pulled back, trembling. I can't, he said, the words breaking. Her smile wavered, her eyes glistening. Why not, she begged. Why leave me again? Why didn't you save me? His chest caved in. He shook his head, tears stinging his eyes though none fell. I tried. I swear I tried. I was too late. She stepped closer, desperation cracking her voice. Don't go. Please, Naruto. Don't let me die again. Every muscle in his body screamed to stay. To hold her. To protect her this time. But he forced his legs to turn, forced himself to walk away. Each step felt like shattering his own heart. And then it came. That scream. The same one from that day when the demons tore her life away. It echoed through the chamber, raw and blood-curdling, so real it made his knees buckle. Naruto clenched his fists until his nails cut skin. He wanted to turn back. Gods, he wanted to. But he didn't. Because he knew this wasn't her. This was the trial. And if he gave in, he'd never leave. So he walked on, her scream chasing him into the dark. Naruto staggered as the darkness warped again, the walls of the chamber melting into something all too familiar. His breath caught in his throat when he saw her. Rumi. She was on her knees, her violet patterns dim, flickering like dying embers. Tears streaked her cheeks, her hands trembling as she reached for him. And looming behind her Indra. Sword raised, his shadow stretching over her like death itself. Naruto's chest seized. His whole body lurched forward. Rumi. Her voice cracked as she screamed for him. Naruto. Please. Please help me. He froze, torn apart. The blade in his grip trembled, his patterns flaring wild and erratic. Every part of him screamed to fight, to kill Indra again, to tear apart the nightmare with his bare hands if he had to. Rumi, his voice broke. Her eyes locked onto his, desperate, begging. You said, her words hitched with sobs. You said I was your North Star. You said you'd always follow me. Please, Naruto, don't let me die. Don't leave me. The words gutted him. His knees almost buckled, his breath ragged like he'd been stabbed. His tears blurred her face, made her voice blur with every memory of the real Rumi, her laugh, her warmth, her love. He wanted to run to her. Gods, he wanted to. But somewhere beneath the agony, his mind whispered the truth. This wasn't her. This wasn't real. If he gave in now he'd never escape. He'd never get back to her. His sob tore out of him raw, shaking his whole body. He stumbled backward, forcing one foot in front of the other, tearing his gaze away as her screams rose behind him. Please, she cried again, her voice breaking like glass. Don't leave me, Naruto. Don't let me die. You promised. He bit down so hard on his lip he tasted blood. His hand covered his mouth, muffling his sobs as he staggered forward, away from her. Then it came the sound that shattered him. Her death scream. The scream he'd heard in battlefields, in nightmares, but now it was Rumi's. Ripped apart, full of betrayal and pain. It clawed at his soul, dragged at his heart until he thought he'd collapse. Naruto sobbed as he stumbled through the dark, every step like tearing off his own skin. His sword's faint glow lit the outline of a door. He reached for it with a trembling hand, forcing himself not to look back, not even once. If he did he'd never leave. The door groaned open. Light spilled into the chamber, cutting through the dim like a blade. Naruto staggered forward, his soul blade gone, his hands clenched at his sides. Tears streaked his face, raw and unhidden. They weren't the tears of a coward or a boy broken by fear, they were the tears of someone who had walked through love twisted into loss, who had forced himself to keep moving when every step tore at his heart. The elders waited. For the first time in generations, none of them spoke at once. Tokiyama rose slowly, leaning on his staff. His lined face was unreadable, but his eyes held something rare, the weight of recognition. "You pass." The words were simple, but the silence that followed was not. One elder looked away, jaw tight, as if ashamed. He had sent countless hunters into the trial, demanded they harden their hearts, but this boy had walked out carrying his heart openly, scarred but still beating. Another elder's lips pressed thin, the corners trembling. He saw in Naruto's tears something dangerous, not weakness, but a strength different from their own. A strength they had buried centuries ago. Compassion. The younger hunters lining the walls shifted, their gazes fixed on him not with suspicion, but with awe. To them, he wasn't abomination or prophecy. He was proof. Proof that a hunter could suffer, could grieve, and still keep walking. And for a long moment, no one moved. Naruto stood there, chest heaving, tears falling soundlessly. Not proud. Not triumphant. Just broken enough to keep moving forward. And the elders for the first time in their long, unyielding lives saw not just his power, but the weight of his heart. Naruto didn't hear the elders call after him. Didn't care. He walked straight back to his quarters, every step heavier than the last. The door shut behind him, and the silence inside felt louder than any battlefield. He dropped onto the bed, boots still on, sword leaning forgotten against the wall. His chest was tight, his breath shallow, because all he could hear was her. Rumi's voice echoing from the trial, begging him, breaking him, calling him her North Star as the illusion tore her away. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone. He didn't think, he just called. Once. Twice. 3 times. Voicemail. The sound of it made his heart cave in. He needed to hear her voice. Just once. Just something real. The phone buzzed. His eyes shot to the screen. Rumi, about to go on stage. Can't talk. But I'm carrying you with me tonight. Always. He stared at the words until they blurred, his vision burning. She was out there, under the lights, smiling for the world while he sat alone in a foreign room, choking on ghosts that weren't real. Naruto pressed the phone against his forehead, knuckles white around it. His breath hitched, but no tears came this time. Just that dull, breaking ache. Always, he whispered back to no one, the word falling into the empty room. Meanwhile, in Seoul, the arena lights dimmed. The crowd screamed as the stage flooded with violet and sapphire beams. Rumi stood in the center, mic trembling just slightly in her hand. Her hair caught the glow, damp from rehearsal, her chest rising and falling with nerves. She thought of his grin, his voice, the weight of him saying she was his North Star. As the music started, her patterns shimmered faintly, violet curling across her skin like threads of light, hidden from the crowd but alive for her alone. Her voice rose, clear and strong, but her heart whispered to him, miles away. This song's for you. Her smile bloomed, the kind she only wore when she thought of him. And though Naruto sat alone in that cold room, when he closed his eyes, he swore he could hear her. The arena roared as the lights cut out. Thousands of fans screamed, their voices rising like thunder, and then a single spotlight. Rumi stood at the center of the stage, mic in hand. Zoey and Mira flanked her, but for a moment, it was only her. Her violet patterns flickered faintly under the stage lights, invisible to the crowd, but to her, they burned with one purpose. She inhaled. And sang. The first note cut clean through the noise, soft but unwavering. The crowd screamed again, but then fell quiet, hanging on every word. Her voice soared, weaving through the music with power and grace. Each lyric wrapped around the arena, but she wasn't singing for them. She was singing for him. Every smile she gave, every note she held, every sway of her body under the violet beams, it was all for the boy sitting in a lonely room miles away. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't falter. Back in Takayama, Naruto sat cross-legged on his bed, phone in hand. The livestream buffered for half a second before it caught, and then there she was. His breath caught in his throat. The arena lights bathed her in violet, her voice pouring out of the tiny speaker like it was meant only for him. She smiled into the mic, her eyes glinting with a light he knew too well, and his chest ached. "You're my North Star," she sang, just one line, a line that wasn't in the original song. No one else noticed. But he did. Naruto's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles whitened. Tears prickled hot in his eyes, but he blinked them back. Not here. Not now. The crowd erupted, chanting her name, waving banners and light sticks. To them, it was Huntress's first concert of the season. To Naruto, it was a message. A promise. When the camera panned across the stage, Rumi's smile never faltered. But her eyes softened, just once, when she looked straight into the lens. Straight through it. Straight at him. Naruto let out a shaky laugh, pressing the phone closer as if that would close the miles. "Sing for me, Rumi," he whispered. "I'm right here." And for the rest of the night, he forgot the ghosts, the trials, the pain. Because her voice carried him. The arena lights flared brighter as Huntress hit their stride, harmonies weaving together like they'd been carved from the same soul. Zoe's rap hit sharp, Myra's vocals soared, and Rumi's voice anchored it all, steady, luminous, undeniable. But beneath the stage, something stirred. The Han moon pulsed. The ancient tether between worlds hummed in resonance with their song, each lyric feeding it, each note layering strength into its threads. It wasn't visible to the crowd, they only saw lights and glitter and three idols pouring their hearts out. But to hunters, to demons, to anyone attuned to soul energy, the truth was clear, every beat was weaving power into the barrier, reforging it stronger than before. Rumi felt it burn faintly across her patterns, not pain, but warmth. Zoe's eyes flickered wide for half a breath, Myra's grip tightened on her mic, but none of them faltered. They sang harder. And then it happened. A flash of gold ripped across the stage, too quick and too subtle for human eyes to truly register. The crowd thought it was a trick of the lights, a special effect. But the three of them knew better. The Han moon had answered. Rumi's heart clenched, her gaze tilting upward instinctively. For a split second, she thought of him, the boy who carried her heart from miles away, who bled and fought so that this barrier could hold. Her voice swelled, violet threads pulsing across her skin, hidden from the screaming fans but not from the world that needed her strength. Back in his lonely room in Takayama, Naruto saw it through the live stream. The gold. The light. And his chest loosened, breath shuddering out of him. "That's it," he whispered to the screen. "Shine, Rumi, strengthen it. I'm with you." The arena roared, unaware they had just witnessed more than a concert. They had witnessed the world itself being mended. The crowd was still howling, drunk on the afterglow of Huntress's finale. Streamers littered the floor, lights pulsed violet and gold, and fans shrieked themselves hoarse as Rumi and the others bowed. But Jinu wasn't smiling anymore. He had seen it. Just for a flash, when the spotlights caught her at the wrong angle, her skin shimmered with patterns curling violet threads that no human eye could see. Demon energy. On a hunter. His gut twisted cold. Hunters were supposed to burn that energy out of existence, not carry it inside them. And yet she had. She wielded it while singing like she was born for it, and the crowd had eaten it up without knowing what they were watching. Jinu's nails dug into his palms. If Naruto was terrifying enough, a half-demon with strength even Indra couldn't match, then this girl was something worse. A hunter who wasn't fully human. A hunter who could blur the lines between both worlds. He should have felt panic. He should have reported it to the others immediately. But another thought, sharper and darker, slithered through him. What if I can use it? If she carried demon energy, then she had weakness. Secrets. A hunter like that wouldn't last long if the truth got out. Maybe he could turn it, twist it, make her theirs instead of his. Corrupt her, or at least break her. And if not, expose her. Let the hunters destroy their own idol. There's no way they already know about it. The crowd's cheers reached a fever pitch as the girls exited the stage. Jinu barely heard it. His smile finally returned, but it wasn't for the fans. It was thin, cruel, calculated. She's not untouchable, he whispered under the roar. She's just leverage. And with that thought, his fear curdled into something dangerous, intent. The glow of stage lights still clung to their skin when the Saja boys slipped back into their safe house. The faint stench of smoke, sweat, and demon energy lingered heavier than the cologne they wore for the crowd. Ryuk kicked off his boots, tossing his jacket onto the couch. We killed it. That crowd would have signed their souls over if we asked. He smirked, preening in the cracked mirror like he hadn't just walked away from a near frenzy. Shu sprawled out in a chair, pulling at the chains around his neck. Doesn't matter. The hunters are still quiet. No one's biting. No chaos yet. His voice dripped with boredom. But Jinu wasn't smiling. He stood near the window, jaw tight, replaying the moment in his head. The violet shimmer on her skin, glowing in sync with the music. Patterns. Demon patterns. Finally, he spoke, his voice sharp enough to cut the room in half. Rumi. The idol girl. She's not normal. Inu perked up, twirling a strand of glossy pink hair between his fingers. Not normal how? Everyone looks starry-eyed for her, sure, but that's just stagecraft. Jinu turned, eyes hard. No. I saw it. Her skin, her energy, it flared during the performance. Demon energy. Patterns. The room froze. Even Ryuk stopped mid-preen. Impossible, Jian said flatly, though the edge in his voice betrayed unease. Hunters don't carry that. They purge it. Shu leaned forward, a wolfish grin spreading. Unless she's not just a hunter. Unless she's something else. That's my point, Jinu snapped. She's like him. Like Uzumaki. Not human. Not demon. Something in between. Ryuk whistled low. Half BLD hunters. Cute. So what do we do about it? Inu's eyes glinted with mischief. Easy. We use it. Imagine what happens if the other hunters find out their perfect idol isn't pure. That she's carrying demon taint. They'll turn on her in a heartbeat. Idol career, done. Reputation, ruined. Naruto. Distracted. Broken. Jian crossed his arms, frowning. Or worse. If she really is like him, pushing her might backfire. We could be staring down two monsters instead of one. For a moment, silence. Then Jinu's lips curled into a smile, thin, deliberate. Then we don't push her. Not yet. We get close. We make her trust us. If she's already carrying demon energy, she's halfway ours already. And when the time comes, he let the thought dangle, sharp as a blade. Shu chuckled darkly. Corrupt the idol. Break the demon. Sounds like a good plan to me. The others exchanged glances, unease flickering beneath their bravado. But none of them argued. Because for the first time, the Saja boys had found something scarier than Naruto. They'd found his weakness. And her name was Rumi. Backstage, the noise of the arena was muffled to a hum, like the world had gone underwater. Rumi sat forward on the couch, phone gripped so tightly her knuckles whitened. When Naruto's face finally flickered onto the screen, her heart lurched. He was smiling. That boyish grin she loved, only it didn't reach his eyes. His hair was damp, his shirt clung to his shoulder, and there was a tightness in his jaw he couldn't disguise. "Hey, Rumi," he said, soft and steady, like nothing was wrong. Zoey leaned over Rumi's shoulder, beaming. "Naruto. You should have seen her out there," she lit up the stage. Naruto chuckled, the sound too thin, too forced. "Yeah. I could feel it from here. The Hunmun's stronger already. You're amazing, Rumi." Mira crossed her arms, eyes narrowing. "You sound like hell." He waved her off with a half-smirk. "I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Just focus on your shows, yeah. I'll handle the rest." Rumi's chest ached. She pressed closer to the screen, searching the cracks in his expression. "Naruto, don't do that." His grin faltered. "Do what?" "Pretend." Her voice dropped, quiet but firm. "You're trying to sound strong, but you're not fooling anyone. Not me. Not them. You're hurting." The silence stretched. His eyes fell, his hand dragging through his hair. Zoey whispered, "She's right." Mira added, steady but softer now, "Stop lying to her, Naruto. She can see through you." Finally, Naruto exhaled, shaky. "Yeah. I'm struggling." Rumi's throat tightened, her patterns glowing faintly as she pressed her palm to the glass. "Then let me carry it with you. Don't shut me out, not now." His gaze lifted, raw, unguarded. His hand pressed against the screen from his side, claws and all. The smile he gave her was tired, almost broken, but real. "If I fall apart, it's with you. Always with you." Her tears blurred the image, but she nodded. Zoey sniffled and squeezed her shoulder, Mira rested a rare, steadying hand on her other side. Then, with a look between them, the two girls quietly slipped out of the room. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving only the faint hum of the phone line. Naruto swallowed, voice rough. "I almost lost it today. They threw me into a trial, illusions, ghosts, people I loved. All screaming at me, hating me, blaming me. I could take that. But then it was you. They made me watch Indra kill you. You begged me to save you. Called me your North Star." His breath broke. "And I walked away. I had to. But your screams, Rumi gods, your screams." Her hand trembled against the screen, tears spilling freely now. "Naruto." He gave a hollow laugh, raw in his throat. "Guess I'm not as strong as I thought. It tore me apart. I thought my chest would crack open right there. I just needed to hear your voice. Needed to know you're alive. That you're still mine." Rumi pressed her forehead to the phone. "I'm here. I'm yours. Always." They stayed like that, just breathing together across the miles. Naruto's eyes slipped shut, his thumb brushing faintly over the screen. "Sing for me," he murmured. "Please." Rumi wiped her face, steadied herself, and let her voice slip out soft, fragile, unpolished, but full of love. "You're my North Star." His chest eased as her song filled the silence. Not a performance, not for the world, just for him. He leaned back against the wall, phone pressed to his chest like a lifeline. His lips curved faintly, that tired boyish smile she loved. And then, slowly, his breathing steadied. His eyes fluttered shut. Still smiling, Naruto drifted into sleep with her voice wrapped around him like a blanket. Rumi watched, her own tears drying into a small, steady smile. She whispered one last line into the quiet. "Always, my North Star." The screen dimmed, but neither of them let go. Rumi stayed long after his breathing had evened out, the faint static of the call filling the silence. The arena still roared somewhere beyond the walls, encore chants rising like thunder, but she didn't hear them. All she saw was him, Naruto, slumped against the wall, still holding the phone like it tethered him to her. His smile was faint, boyish, but real. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 7. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.